Sophie Alawash. I'm here with my colleagues Natalie Gallarello and Leanne Cox. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge this as the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that I respect their relationship with their country. I'd also like to acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the Kaurna people today. So welcome everyone, thank you for joining us. We are from the Parenting and Family Support Programs team in the Department of Human Services, and usually we go out and deliver workshops to parents and carers in schools, primary schools and high schools, children's centres, childcare centres, but this year's been a bit different. So we have developed a few webinars throughout the year, and this webinar is a condensed version of the My Child and Me workshop, which is for parents of children aged 3 to 12. The information that we'll be going through today is of a general nature, general parenting information. We won't be going into any specific situations, but hopefully there'll be some useful things that you will learn as we go on. So the information that we use is from the Parenting SA Parent Easy Guides, and you can find those on the Parenting SA website, and we'll send you the link to that after this webinar. And as I said, there are a number of workshops that we usually deliver. We have one for parents of young people, teenagers, one for multicultural families, one for dads, and a cyber safety workshop, plus others. So we hope that you enjoy today's webinar, and let's have a look at what we'll be discussing today. So today we're going to have a look at understanding children's development, their brain development, as well as other parts of children's development. We're going to look at what we can do as parents for them so that their development is as best as it can be. Then we're going to have a look at understanding our children's behaviour and unpacking that tricky or challenging behaviour that all children have at times. And then we'll go through the positive approach to guiding children's behaviour and look at what we can do as parents to guide our children when those behaviours are a bit tricky. So we're going to start by having a look at a parenting pyramid, and we've been using this for a few years now. And it's a good way of kind of focusing, I guess, the things that we do as parents throughout the parenting journey and at different times. So down the bottom part of the pyramid in the green is what we call everyday parenting, or parenting for healthy development. So it's what we want to be doing every day. It's the small things that we do every day with our children. And really it's about those foundations, setting up some good foundations. If you think about a house, we want it to have strong foundations so that it is strong and lasts for years and years and years. And so that's the same for our relationships with our children. We want to have those strong connections and those strong foundations so that we can have positive relationships with them. In the middle part is where we have some tools, I guess, for when we need to respond to those challenging behaviours. And that's normal, to be expected. Children are going to push the boundaries at some point. That's part of how they learn. So it's good for us as parents to think about that a bit differently. And this might give you a way of, I guess, flipping the switch on that. So instead of thinking about punishment and consequences about punishment, think about it as providing opportunities for our children to learn and to try different things. And we'll go through what we call the parenting CCPR, and that's a way of unpacking what we can do as parents to guide our children's behaviour so that the next time they can try and make better choices, better decisions, problem solve and do things a bit differently. And then at the top in the blue, we have seek help. So when things are difficult, if things get difficult, then we always encourage parents and carers to get help from wherever they need. And there are a range of supports and resources out there from the Parenting SA website, which has a wealth of information. Friends and family might be a useful source of support, your GP, school. So we'll go through those a bit towards the end. And all of this is what we call the positive approach. So really we're thinking about a positive approach to guiding our children's behaviour. So now I'd like you to have a think about your children, one of your children, and have a think about what is something that is unique and wonderful about your child. What's the essence of them? What makes them them? And please feel free, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat function. So please feel free to put something in there if you'd like to share it with others on the webinar. And if you have any questions or comments at any point throughout the webinar, please feel free to use that chat function and we will respond. So Rosa said personality. Yeah, so I have 2 children, 2 daughters, and they both have very different personalities and they're both very unique and different from each other, and I love the different aspects about them. And I really like this quote on the side of your screen. Behind every young child who believes in himself or herself is a parent who believed first. And really that's what we're talking about today. It's about us as parents providing a secure base, a strong foundation for our children to go out and explore their world. So now we're going to have a look at children's development, understanding our children's development, and I'm going to hand over to Leanne now.
Thank you, Sophie. It's really lovely to see all those comments in the chat function. Problem solving, imagination, kind, really lovely words, energetic, sparkling, lots of great stuff in the chat function. Thank you everyone for doing that. So understanding our children's development. So the reason we look at understanding our children's development is because when we can understand what's going on for our children, we get a bigger picture about what's happening for them. We can really focus on them and we can then start to understand some of the things that they do and why they do it. So we're going to cover a few topics in this section, but first of all, we want to have a look at a really great little video called Brain Builders, and it's by the Alberta Wellness Centre in partnership with the Centre for the Developing Child and Frameworks Institute. So let's have a look at the video. It's going to take us through a few things about brain development because that's our foundation from which we work from, that strong foundations for brain development, and then we'll come back and have a chat about it afterwards. So here goes.
Science tells us that the experiences we have in the first years of our lives actually affect the physical architecture of the developing brain. This means that brains aren't just born, they're also built over time based on our experiences. Just as a house needs a sturdy foundation to support the walls and roof, a brain needs a good base to support all future development. Positive interactions between young children and their caregivers literally build the architecture of the developing brain. Building a sturdy foundation in the earliest years provides a good base for a lifetime of good mental function and better overall health. So just how is a solid brain foundation built and maintained in a developing child? One way is through what brain experts call serve and return interactions. Imagine a tennis match between a caregiver and a child, but instead of hitting a ball back and forth across a net, various forms of communication pass between the two, from eye contact to touch, from singing to simple games like peekaboo. These interactions, repeated throughout a young person's developing years, are the bricks that build a healthy foundation for all future development. But another kind of childhood experience shapes brain development too, and that's stress. Good kinds of stress, like meeting new people or studying for a test, are healthy for development because they prepare kids to cope with future challenges. Another kind of stress, called toxic stress, is bad for brain development. If a child is exposed to serious ongoing hardships like abuse and neglect, and he has no other caregiver in his life to provide support, the basic structures of his developing brain may be damaged. Without a sturdy foundation to properly support future development, he is at risk for a lifetime of health problems, development issues, even addiction. It's possible to fix some of the damage of toxic stress later on, that it's easier, more effective, and less expensive to build solid brain architecture in the first place. One of the things building sturdy brain architecture supports is the development of basic emotional and social skills. An important group of skills, which scientists call executive function and self-regulation, can be thought of like air traffic control in the child's mental airspace. Think of a young child's brain as the control tower at a busy airport, all those planes landing and taking off, and all of the support systems on the ground simultaneously demand the controller's attention to avoid a crash. It's the same with a young child learning to pay attention, plan ahead, and remember and follow lots of rules. Like all of us, kids have to react to things happening in the world around them, while also dealing with worries, temptations, and obligations on their mind. As these demands for attention pile up, air traffic control helps a child regulate the flow of information, prioritize tasks, and above all, find ways to manage stress and avoid mental collisions along the way. Having this ability is a necessity for positive and level mental health. Developing effective air traffic control, overcoming toxic stress, and building solid brain architecture are things kids can't do on their own. And since strong societies are made up of healthy, contributing individuals, it's up to us as a community to make sure all young people have the kinds of nurturing experiences they need for positive development. To build better futures, we need to build better brains.
Okay, so lots of information in that little video, but some key points. So one of the key points is that to build sturdy foundations, we do this through serve and return. So that's serve and return. I smile at you, you smile at me. We smile at our children, they smile back. We talk to them, we laugh, they talk and laugh back. So that's serve and return, going back and forth between us. It's the experiences that shape brains. So that was really an important point there. All the experiences that we can give our children to help shape their brain structure. And the other important thing to think about is that stress. So that was something that came out in that as well. So there's good types of stress. There's stress that we have every day, and we as parents know that. We have to get up, we have to get the children ready, breakfast, clothes, pack their lunches, you know, all those things we do in the morning. We have to leave at 8 o'clock. We have to get the kids to school by 8:30 so that we can be at work at 9. And we have a little bit of stress, but that's good stress. That's stress that gets us up, gets us moving forward. And we can do that. And children have stress too. So it could be my friend didn't come to school today and I had no one to play with at lunchtime, and they feel a bit stressed about that. But they have you there to talk to. They have positive and supportive relationships that rely on them and help them through that stress. The toxic stress is that stress that's there. It is intense, and there aren't the supportive relations there to support our children through. So any kind of trauma, any kind of neglect or abuse can lead to that. So there's no supportive interactions there to help children to move through that. And like I said in the video, we can rectify that. We can put in some support structures for those children. It might take a bit longer, but we can still do that. So it's really important that we have those supportive relationships for our children to help them through those stressful times. So some really good information there. So there's always lots of opportunities to have those interactions, those serve and return interactions. It's what we do every day. That is really important in the structure of the brain. So now we're going to go on to child development. So we're going to have a look now at all the different areas of child development. So we have the physical development. So that is gross motor skills, all the running, jumping, skipping, all those big movements. And then we have fine motor. So being able to hold a pen in our hands, so doing that type of thing and being able to move it and write, lifting up a spoon, small movements, they're the fine motor ones. And then we have cognitive. So our cognitive is our thinking. It's the way we think. It's our planning, our problem solving, our reasoning, our judgment. That's all cognitive. Our academic learning, different skills of how to read and write, they all come into cognition as well. And then we have our speech and language, our communication skills, the way we see things, the way we we perceive information and how we interpret that information and how we're able to put that into language and speech and how we're able to communicate. So they're really key ones. Now, they don't operate independently. They all work together. And then we have our social emotional, which is a really key point, especially for our young children with lots of different emotions. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about social emotional. So I'm not going to go into too much detail there. All of these work together. And when they work together, they develop the self-help and independent skills. So the self-help and independent skills are getting dressed, tying their shoelaces, making breakfast for themselves, being able to ride a bike by themselves. And we can see that in the picture up in the top corner. We have a caregiver, a mum perhaps, who is helping the little one ride a bike. Now, just in that little section there, all areas of child development are being used. So we have the interaction between the caregiver and the child, the communication, the language, the instructions. We're giving instructions, right, hang on now push down with your legs, and we're going to hold on until you get your balance. The child's actually doing lots of things in that whole, all the child development domains. They're planning, so they're using their cognitive abilities. They've got to plan ahead. They've got to plan their muscles and their bodies and how their body's going to move. So if I'm going to hold on to the steering wheel, I'm going to balance. So I've got to really concentrate how I'm doing that, how I'm positioning my body, how I'm going to control the handlebars, how I'm going to push down one leg at a time. And then we've got our gross motor, our motor skills are coming in, our physical skills are coming in, because that I'm pushing, I'm using my big skills to make those big movements with my legs. I'm talking, I'm having conversations with mum, and that's that social emotional connection too, because as we know, connection is really, really important for children. It's that connection between us and them. That's really, really important. And that's what a positive approach we rely on, is that connection. So having that connection is the most important thing, that trust. So we can see there's a bit of trust going on, and mum will let go when she feels like the balance is there. So there's a lot going on. And if we have a look at the other pictures as well, there's lots of different skills being used. We have dads helping out their children with reading and writing. So there's a lot of communication, a lot of cognition, a lot of fine motor with the writing going on. So there's all those child development domains are being used in those pictures. We've got the little ones at the beach having a great time. But while they're having fun, they're also learning. They're also doing lots of things. They're interacting with each other. They're socially connecting with each other. They're jumping out the water, just the cognition to jump out the water, and the physical skills, the planning of, I need to arch my back, I need to throw myself up, I need to jump, and using it all together. And then we have the little one building a birdhouse, putting in, once again, putting into all the domains again, instructions, drawing, measuring out, cutting, and the interaction between the caregiver and the child. So those pictures really represent lots of things going on, and using that whole domain to build those self-help and independent skills. And let's face it, we want our children to grow up. We want them to have all the independent skills. We want them to feel capable and able to move forward and grow and become adults, and hopefully eventually leave home. But those are the things we want them. We want them to be able to exist. We want them to be able to do things. We want them to have that sense of achievement, which is really important for their self-esteem and their self-confidence. So then we're going to now talk about that social emotional development, because it's really an important one. So those of us, especially with our little ones, especially with those younger children who we know have big emotions, and it's really important to understand why they have those big emotions. And bottom line is that we're not born being able to manage or control our emotions. And it takes us, we actually have to learn the skills of how we do manage those emotions. And we learn that by role modelling and by learning from our caregivers. So it's really important that we understand that our children are not necessarily doing those big emotions. And believe me, I had those big emotions. I had the child who would have a huge meltdown in the shop, legs, arms, very loud, and would have to leave the shopping walk out the shop with the child under my arm to get to the car so that I could try and calm down. And if not, I had to go home because it was just too much for him and I needed to help him calm down. So I really understand that one. And I think it's really important for us to really understand that our children don't have the skills. They're not born with the skills to learn how to calm down and to stop that big emotion. It just takes over. So we're going to have a look at that in a minute. We'll just kind of have a look. So it's really, so children's social emotional development refers to children's growing ability to identify and understand their own feelings. So we don't always know how we feel. We can confuse, as a child, frustration and anger and disappointment. They can all get confused. We're actually feeling disappointment, but the way we're behaving is through anger. So it can shape the way we behave. It's one of those things where it's a growing ability to see that other people have feelings, have needs, that empathy for others. It takes time to develop. It's also that ability to be able to grow those relationships and build good relationships with others, family, friends, others. So managing the way they feel is something that they learn as they grow. So this is something we're going to look at now. So why do? So children, so managing emotions is the big one. We'll have a look at some strategies in a minute about how to manage those emotions. So we're going to see that children need to build that sense of loved and being safe. It's really, really one of those key things. So having those safe relationships with their caregivers, spending time, showing that you care for them through actions, through words, supporting interests is really important. Listening and show you value what they say. And one of the key things is having predictable routines and family rituals. So when we're really predictable, children feel safe. So that's a really key thing. Building children's relationships with people who care about them. Other adults in the family, trusted people who they can have those relationships with, friends to be able to socialise and play as much as possible. And helping them to build those skills to have friends, to learn, to remind them to share, to show them how to share, to show them how to let somebody else have their turn. Really, really important. Showing respect. It's all those negotiation skills that children need to learn in their play. How do we negotiate who's going to have the first term? You can do that by being involved in lots of different things, play groups, playgrounds. It can be more formal groups or activities in the community. And modelling those behaviours ourselves, modelling those really positive relationships ourselves is really important. And as we go through, always keep in mind that we're role modelling and it's up to us. Children are looking at us, they're copying us. It's important that we role model. Now, when we say encourage positive emotions, it's giving children lots of opportunities to feel joy, to feel laughter, and to play and to enjoy themselves. So that's how we're encouraging those positive emotions. We're giving them lots of opportunity to enjoy life, to have fun. And when we're having fun, we actually learn a lot more because our brains are open, we're open to learning. And think about us, we learn a lot when we're having fun too. So it's really important that they have these positive emotions, that we encourage that, because it's good for their self-esteem, their coping skills. So when things aren't going well, they have the coping skills developed. And they're the foundations for building lots and lots of skills for them as they grow forward. Help managing emotions. So we're going to really talk about that in a minute. We're going to encourage that them to develop those skills through role modelling it ourselves and how we use our emotions. It's their self-regulation skills. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So why do children have big emotions? So the big thing is, and this is the word that we use, they flip their lids. They have their big meltdowns, they have their tantrums, they have their big emotions. For some children, it's really loud and there's arms and legs going. For other children, it's just a quiet cry. It depends on the personality of each child, their temperament. Every child's temperament and personality is different. So some children, it's a big emotion, it's a big loud movement, and the others, it's still a big emotion, but it might be a bit quieter. So know your children and what's going on. So one of the things that we talk about is Dr. Dan Siegel. He talks about the flipping of the lid. So this explains why children lose their emotions. So remember we said that children are not born knowing how to manage their emotions. That's the key thing. They have to learn the skills. So this is what happens. So I'm going to do a little demonstration for you. So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint for a minute, and then you should just be able to see me. Okay, so this is what we call our hand model. So this is, we're going to use our hand model to explain it. So this part here of my wrist and arm, that's actually going to be my brain stem. So the brain stem is the first part of the brain that develops. It regulates our temperature, our heart rate. It also has our survival skills. So it has our survival skills of fight, flight, freeze. So basic survival skills, basic temperature, heart rate control. That's what keeps us alive. So that's here in the brainstem. Now the brain grows from the bottom up. So that's the first bit, and then it slowly grows up. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have my thumb here is going to be what we call the limbic system, which is a nervous system that has takes all the emotional parts from the different parts of the brain that work with emotion. So like the amygdala is one of those parts of the brain that has emotions as its function. So this limbic system here, this is going to be our feeling part of the brain. Our limbic system is the feeling part of the brain, and that's going to sit right in here. Now our brain's going to grow from the bottom up, and it's going to come around, and then the cortex comes in and it closes around that limbic system. This is our prefrontal cortex, where a lot of our thinking and problem solving and planning goes along, and the whole cortex wraps around like that. So this is our brain. Here we have it. Okay, so what happens when little ones have big emotions? So they start having feelings, a build-up of feeling, whether it's frustration, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger over whatever's going, disappointment, what's happening. So even excitement. So excitement can actually build up to be a big emotion. So just think of things like that. So when we have this limbic system in here, the emotions start getting bigger and bigger. And as that emotion, that feeling part of the brain starts getting taking over, this part of the brain, our thinking part of the brain, the cortex, we start lifting up. So what we're actually doing is the feeling is taking over, our feelings are taking over, and the thinking part of our brain becomes flipped. So we disconnect our thinking part of the brain from the feeling part of the brain because our feelings taking over. And when that happens, we're not able to think, and we're not able to process information that well because our thinking part of the brain's flipped, it's not connected, and our feelings have taken over. So it's our job as caregivers to come in, and we need to help close that flipped lid. And we do this by helping to co-regulate and to bring that thinking part of the brain back down and reconnect with our feelings. So it's our thinking with our feelings. Once we can reconnect, then we can have conversations with our child. While our lid is flipped, while our children's lids are flipped, we're not able to get a lot of information in. Our sole responsibility is to help them to calm down. So we need to help them to calm down, and we can do that by some strategies we're going to talk about now. And once we do that, we can help them to calm down, then we can have those conversations because their thinking part of the brain's back down. So one of the easiest ways of helping children to calm down is to control their breathing. So taking deep breaths. So take deep breaths and to practice taking deep breaths when they're calm. And this is a way to help doing it. And lots of schools and children's centres and childcare centres will use this technique. So we just take our hands and we take our finger, and we can do this when children are calm, when things are okay. So we need to demonstrate this with them so that when they are having a big emotion, they're flipping their lid, we can hold up our hand and get them to start doing this. So we need to breathe in, 2, 3, and then breathe out, 2, 3. Breathe in, 2, 3, breathe out, 2, 3. And we can just go all the way along our hand so that our children can practice breathing and getting their breathing under control. Because once we get our breathing under control, we can calm down our heart rate. We can get our heart rate under control. And once we start calming down, then we can have some conversations about what's going on for them and what's happening with them. So really important. Try to bring our finger up, down, 2, 3, up, 2, 3, down, 2, 3. You might have some other strategies, but this is a really good one because we've got our hands everywhere. There could be other things that you do, and if you'd like to share them in the chat functions, please do. We have some other things that we take out to our workshops that we use. So this is something called a Hoberman ball, which is a breathe ball. And what we do with that is we actually teach children when they're calm so that we can pull it out. You could have a bag of tricks that you can bring out just when they're starting to flip their lid and get in early. And we need to breathe in, 2, 3, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. So if we're demonstrating that with them, then they can actually mirror us, and we're actually showing them how to do it. And they might be breathing fast. They might want to go like this, but we're going to keep the pace, and eventually they'll calm down and match the breathing that we're doing. So really, that's another one. You can buy them online if you want to have a look. Hoberman ball, breathe ball. This is another similar one. It's a little cheapy one. It's only cost about $3, and we can still practice. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. You can have things like little squishies or these types of things. So just that tactile thing of getting children to control and regulate their breathing is really important. So you might have a pile of things that you can bring out just when they're having that big emotion. Another thing that we talk about is time in, and that's where we're going to be with our children when they have that big emotion. So we're not going to send them away. We're going to be them with them. They might just need that hug from us, that connection. So it might be they need a hug. We can address what's going on later. What we need to do is help them to calm down. So they might need a hug from us to help them to calm down. Some children might not want that hug, but we're here with them. So come with me, sit with me, let's do our breathing, and we calm down. And you can find out some more information about time in by looking on the Parenting SA website, and they have a parent easy guide called Time In, and it goes through lots more information. But being with them and being connected and helping them to calm down is really what's important. So another thing we talk about is to understand their emotions. So we've done our coming down strategies, and we're going to say to them, I can see that you feel really upset, really disappointed that we didn't get to go to the park. So that might be something. So saying those words, acknowledging and valuing their feelings is real, because it's okay to have feelings. It's all okay. That's normal to have feelings. If they didn't feel angry and sad, I think we need to be a bit worried. They're happy, they're excited, they're sad, they're confused, frustrated, disappointed, normal reactions. And we need to help them to understand and name them. So we can do that by getting some of these great books here. So there's a few different books out there about feelings that you can get from the department stores quite cheaply, but it can help them to understand what's going on for them. Where do they feel it in their body? Are they clenching their fists when they're angry? Can we get in early before we actually completely flip that lid? We really want to get in when their lids just flipping, so that we can help them to calm down a lot quicker instead of getting it right up here. So lots of things we can do. And I think it's that little quote over that we've got on the screen is really, really important. When our little people are overwhelmed with big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. If we come in with the same amount of emotion as they have, we're just escalating the emotion. We really need to help show that we're calm, role model that, take a breath, breathe, and then help them to calm down. And then we can start lowering that calm down. Otherwise, we're just going to keep raising it until it explodes. So we're just going to have a little video about some children talking about they're flipping the lid, and we'll just have a look at that now. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen, and there we go. Okay, so let's have a look now.
I get really mad when my brother hits me a lot. I don't like it when you say you don't want to play with me. When I'm mad, my brain can get a headache and it can start hurting. your blood keeps pumping because you're like really mad. And you start to get sweaty because you're getting really, really mad. And then when you start getting really mad, you turn red. When your body can't really control
Oh, sorry about that.
yourself, mad just takes over your body. You just get out of control. It's kind of like if you had a jar and then the jar would be your brain and then you put glitter in the jar and that would be how you would feel. If you shook up the jar and the glitter went everywhere, that would be how your mind looks. And it's like spinning around and then you don't have any time to think. And you sometimes punch stuff and people when you don't really mean it. When I get angry, I feel it in my heart. I really don't like when I get angry. The amygdala really reacts, but the prefrontal cortex tries to keep it down. When I feel like I want to, get really angry and yell, I just sometimes, take deep breath. First you find a place where you can be alone, then you find some way to relax and calm down. When I need to calm down, I take deep breaths. I breathe in through my nose. Sometimes I close my eyes or just take deep breaths. It's calming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain. It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your brain. My brain slows down and then I feel more calm and then I'm ready to speak to that person.
Okay, so just that music in itself is very relaxing. So there might be some music, there might be some mindfulness, yoga, things like that that can help calm our children. And I think those kids are really quite in tune with themselves. It was really good. So now that we've had a look at that social emotional development, we're going to have a look at one of the most important ways children learn these skills, and that's through play. So I'm going to pass you over to Natalie now, and Natalie's going to take us through that.
Thanks, Leanne. On your screen, you'll be able to see a beautiful quote by Maggie Dent. Leanne's going to just flip that screen over. Beautiful, thank you. And it's a quote about the seriousness of play. So play is serious business. It's how our children learn almost everything they need in life. And it's a beautiful quote that links really well into the previous slides about brain development and also the different domains of development. And if we think back to the domains of development that Leanne was talking about, and also the Brain Builders video, the video talked to us about how healthy brain development occurs in our children when they're happy. And if we think about the times that our children are happy, one of those times is when they're playing and doing the things that they love. And that's also when they're learning. And they're learning and they're not even aware of it. And also when our children are playing, they're covering all those different areas of development, like Leanne talked about when she was looking at the little person riding the bike and the children jumping in the water. So, you know, play is so important for those, you know, for the healthy brain development, also linking the areas of development in our children. Our children engage in a number of different types of play. The ones that I'm going to talk to you about today are free play, imaginative play, and unstructured play. And structured play. So structured play is when our children are usually in situations like they're at netball training or dance lessons, football, swimming lessons. And those are all things that are usually guided by adults. And our children love these experiences and they learn so much from them. But also during these experiences, all the decision making is happening by the adults. So what happens next, or what drill are they going to do next? Okay, it's time to stop swimming that lap and come back to the side of the pool. And therefore, when our children are in those situations, those opportunities to build those skills of decision making and life skills can be a little bit limited. They learn so much from those experiences, but those opportunities for developing those skills are not as present for them in those situations. The best types of play that our children can engage in is unstructured free play and imaginative play. Now, these are when our children are doing the things that they love and that they have an interest in, and when they can develop skills and they have opportunities to practice what they've seen adults and their peers role model for them in their life and in their play experiences. So it's important that we give them opportunities to be able to play in those situations. We might need to give our children make suggestions and point our children in the right direction to be able to experience those different types of play. And we might need to think about the things that our children love doing. So if our children love being creative through building with all the recycled boxes, then we might need to put them in the environment so that our children have access to them to be able to play with. The other thing is that we might need to, make sure that we've got an environment that has things that they really enjoy, because when they're going to be engaging in things that they enjoy and like doing, then their play is going to be so much more constructive for them and they're going to learn a lot more from it. One of the most beautiful ways that we can build connection with our children is when our children are inviting us to play with them. And as a parent myself, I know that can be really tricky, when you work from home, and also if you're not working from home, there's also things that you need to do, like, house routines, getting your dinner ready, and keep your household up and running. And there's not really a lot of time for us to play. But we actually need to take the time and make time to play with our children, because when our children invite us into their play, it's actually really special. It gives us an opportunity to get some insight into our children's world as they see it. And it also helps us to understand what their interests are. And it's a prime opportunity for us to continue to build that connection with our children. As adults, when we do join our children's play, we have a tendency to want to guide the play. When we can see that an outcome is not going to be the outcome that our children necessarily want it to be, our first instinct is to try and sway the play so that they get to the outcome that they want. But what we really need to do is take a step back and let the play take its natural course based on what our children are experiencing and the way that they've guided the play. When we do that, it actually shows our children that we trust them and that we think that they're capable, but it also gives our children the opportunity to learn through those experiences when the play doesn't go the way that they think it is, because then they have to build those skills of perhaps problem solving a new way, to get to the outcome that they want. They might end up having a conflict within that play that they need to then negotiate if they're having a play, if they're playing with their siblings or a friend. So through that play and the different directions that the play takes, so much learning is actually happening for our children. If we can take a step back and just go with the flow, where our relationship with our children are going to be so much more stronger, but our children are also going to develop such wonderful thinking and problem solving and life skills through that process. I know it's hard, but we do need to be able to take that step back and let our children guide the play. When our children do experience and have or engage in these free and imaginative play situations, they get lots of opportunities to identify with the adult world. So they see us as adults and adult caregivers in their world, role modelling so many wonderful things, whether it be the way that we negotiate with our children, the way that we give them, we may give them time, we may give them some opportunities to finish up what they're doing and say, we're going to be leaving the house in 10 minutes, start finishing up what you're doing. We want to give our children opportunities to then practice those skills and skills that they need to, that they've seen from their peers as well. So through this play, they get to develop turn taking, they get to develop and practice understanding how their decisions then impact their peers when they're playing. They get to express their feelings and they get to start investigating their own emotions as well. And Leanne talked about how important that is for us to help to be able to help them, to give them opportunities to understand what they're feeling and how they're feeling. And remember that play is a time when they're feeling so happy and joyful. So we want to really support this time. Through these types of play, children are making sense of the world around them, and then they're beginning to understand how they then fit into the world. So as you can see, play is really, really important for the development of our children, and it provides lots of opportunities for them to build in skill, to participate and build their skills and knowledge. So now that we've had a look at play, I'd like us to really think about our own parenting and how we can parent for healthy development. So we're going to have a think about what our children need from us. And if you can think about some things that our children need from us and you'd like to pop them in the chat function, where I'd be happy to hear from you. So what do you think our children need from us for healthy development? We'll pop a couple of things up on the screen, so maybe that might provoke a little bit of thought. So I can see that some people have put safe and secure environment, love and affection. They definitely need our time and they definitely need our attention. So thank you for putting those in the chat function there, and all of those are absolutely true. They do need all of those things from us. The way that we can do that is through our everyday parenting, and that's the bottom of the pyramid that Sophie introduced to us early on. So we're talking about the things that we can do every day in our everyday parenting that help to build those strong foundations with our children, that help build that healthy development for our children. So they really need us to help them to feel loved and safe, and we need them to feel valued and like they belong and that they're an important part of our family and that they have a really significant place in our family. And when they're not here, if they're at school or if they're at a play date, that they're still really missed, and that when they come into our place and our home, that they feel safe, and that sense of security helps them to feel confident to be able to explore the world, and also helps them to develop the best that they can. So a couple of the things that we really need to help our children with healthy development is that we need to set clear limits and boundaries, and they need to understand that they are based around our family values. Now, our family values are something that we really need to be clear on. and we need to know what is important to us as the adults in the family that are helping to guide our children. So we really need to help our children to understand what our family values are, but we also need to involve our children in the process of understanding what our family values and our family values are and what is important to our children as well. So it's important that we actually involve them in that process and get their opinions on what is important to them. They need opportunities to learn skills, and they also need to feel capable of being able to do things. And remember that this is a thing that drives our children, is the ability and to be able to do things and to feel capable that they can. And they need our support to manage their emotions. This is an important life skill that it's going to help them and support them through the rest of their life, through school, through their adulthood, and then their adolescence, and then moving through their adulthood. Because the reality is that we're not with our children all the time, so we need to give them the skills to be able to manage these emotions and feelings when we're not around. And they need our support to be able to pursue their dreams and interests. And, you know, they need us to champion for them to be able to do that. We really want to, we really want to be able to support our children, and we can help them to feel capable and to problem solve and make decisions and be able to cope with, develop coping skills. And we can do that in a number of ways, and some of those might be by letting them make choices for themselves. My daughter and I used to have a lot of disagreements in the morning because she wanted to do a lot of things for herself. And obviously in the morning we're very time poor because we need to get out the house for school. So what we used to do, or it might have even been on the weekend for swimming. So what I would do is she always wanted to choose her clothes, and we used to have lots of disagreements about that. So now we have a drawer in her wardrobe where in her wardrobe she can have anything that is in that drawer, and she can put anything that she wants on. That means that I need to then take a step back and be okay if her clothes are mismatching, but she has the opportunity then to make choice and do things that she wants. And in that drawer is things that I know that are clothes that she likes as well. So it actually puts the power back in her, not the power, but it actually gives her some control over the situation, and she is able to make those decisions for herself, which she really wants to do. We often too are so busy that we find that we say, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do this. Whereas what we really need to be doing is find ways to say, yes, actually, we can go to the park, but we're going to have dinner first. Or yes, we can go to the zoo on the weekend, but we need to be able to get through these things first. So we need to find ways to say yes to our children. We want to be able to encourage them, to give them responsibilities, but we also need to make sure that they're age and stage appropriate. So we wouldn't be asking our 2-year-old child to perhaps pack the dishwasher, but we might be able to help them put away some of the plastics from the dishwasher. So we want to make sure that we're giving them age appropriate responsibilities, so that when they can actually achieve them, that they feel like they have a sense of achievement about the responsibilities that we've given them. We want to be able to help our children to problem solve and make decisions and manage those problem solving situations. We're going to be there to support them through that, but we want to put it back on them to then say, so how could we fix this problem? What could we do differently this time? And we are going to talk about that a little bit later when we look at the parenting CCPR. Our children really look to us for approval, and they want to please us, and they want to do the right thing for us. But what we need to be really mindful of is the way that we praise our children and the way that we support our children. So what we want to be able to do is that if our children are playing really nicely together, we don't want to walk past and we say, oh, well done, good job. What we want to be doing is saying, I really love the way you two are playing together nicely. Or wow, you guys have been playing that Lego together really well and have been communicating great. However it is that you talk with your children, but we want to tell them what it is that we're really proud of or that we're really happy about. Sometimes our children do drawings for us and they bring us their drawings, and we could say things like, instead of, oh, that's beautiful, what we really want to say is, wow, you have spent so much time doing that painting. I love the way that you've used lots of colours. So making it more about the process rather than the end product, and making it more about the actions that they're doing that we're really happy to see, so that they can repeat those because we've told them what we're happy about. Doing all of these helps our children to understand and to be able to repeat behaviour that they know is acceptable for us. So yeah, that's a really good way to be able to help build that sense of well-being and that sense of self-esteem for our children. Leanne talked a little bit about feelings and letting know that feelings, all kinds of feelings, are okay. That it's okay to feel angry and upset. It's okay to feel happy. But what we can do when we're seeing behaviours that are not okay, say it's okay to feel angry and upset, but it's not okay to hit your brother, or it's not okay to take the toy from someone. So we need them to know that what they're feeling is fine, but the action that goes along with that is the bit that we're not okay with. And that's okay. And we're going to give you strategies later to be able to support. We're going to talk through the CCPR later to be able to support support our children during these times. As you can see, there's so many things that our children need from us as parents, and it's a big responsibility that we've got, but hopefully I've given you some ideas of how we can support our children through the everyday and through healthy parenting and to parent for healthy development. But what we might need to think about is the things that influence our parenting, and we probably as parents don't really think about that too much. We just do things because perhaps we've always done them like that, or that's the way that we were taught. So it's also really good to be able to start thinking about the things that influence our parenting. On the screen, you'll see a few dot points there. So how we were brought up, our culture, things that we see others say or do, religion, spirituality, and life experiences. I skipped over their own research because I really wanted to have a chat to you about that and ask you to be really careful about where you get your information from for your parenting, to support you in your parenting, because there's a lot of social media and blogs out there, and a lot of information out there for parents, but it might not actually be supported by really good research behind. So we would love you to be able to access really solid research that supports your parenting and that has some good depth behind it and good reasoning. On the Parenting SA website, you'll find on the backs of pegs some really good links to some websites where you can get really good parenting advice, some really great parenting support can come from people like Justin Coulson, Maggie Dent, who had that beautiful quote about play before, Raising Children Network. We have a lot of, and we'll send out some links as well, but you can also access the information on the back of the pegs and in the Parenting SA website. The other thing that I have left off at the bottom is our values, and I'd just like you to have a think about the values that are really important to you. I'm going to put a poll up for you. Please choose the values that you think are the most important for you. You can choose more than one. So if you think that in your family being active and healthy is super important, please choose that. If you think that patience is really important and a value that you really want to support in your family, then please choose that. I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. And then what we'll do is I'll share the results at the end for you. I can see that kindness is a big one for families so far. And I can see that honest and trustworthy is really important as well. Just give you a little bit more time because you can see that there's still lots of people putting their info in. Well, kindness is taking the lead from what I can see in front of me, everyone. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now and I'm going to share the results with you. So as you can see, kindness is something that's really a value that's really important to a lot of people, along with respect, honest and trustworthy. What you will find is that my values will be different to my best friend's values, and things will be different to lots of different people, but our values are set from the things that you can see on your screen, you know, how we were brought up, our culture, our religion, and they are different for every family, and no families will have the same values. But those values are what is important to you and to your family, and they form the basis of how we then help our children to support their behaviour and through our everyday parenting, everyday the things that we do every day, and the things that we live and breathe and role model to our children should come through in our everyday parenting, and it all link back to our values. And now that we've had a little bit of a look at you know, what our children need from us as parents and what influences our parenting, I'll hand you over to Sophie, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the different parenting styles that support children's healthy development the best.
Thanks, Nat. So I'm going to use the social discipline window to talk through 4 main parenting styles. And as I go through them, just have a think about your parenting, and if you're firmly in one style, or if you use one in particular situations and another in other situations. Do you move about through all of them? And just reflect on that. So there is a Parent Easy guide on parenting styles on the Parenting SA website, which you might want to have a look at. And there's also a great video there by Jodie Benveniste as well. So you'll see on your screen, there's a graph with 4 quadrants. On the y-axis, the vertical line, you'll see structure. So that's the rules, the boundaries, the expectations that we have of our children. And then on the bottom is support. So that's the support and guidance and encouragement that we give to our children to help them meet those rules and expectations. So in the top left-hand corner, we have authoritarian, the authoritarian parent. So if we think about that as doing to, you know, the old-fashioned kind of do as I say kind of parent, where there's a lot of rules and boundaries and limits, but not a lot of support or guidance to be able to meet those limits. And obviously there are some situations where that's going to be necessary. For example, if you have a small child running towards a busy road, you're going to be very authoritarian in that situation because you want them to stop and be safe. It's not a time to sit down and negotiate and talk about the pros and cons. You know, there are times for that, and that's one of them. So if we move down to the bottom right-hand quadrant, you'll see that it will be permissive parenting or doing for. So not a lot of rules or boundaries or consistency maybe, but a lot of support. So, and if we think about it as doing for, so this might be the parent who does a lot of things for their children, doesn't encourage them to develop their own skills. But obviously there are times where this is also necessary, where we want to give our children that extra support, I guess. For example, if they're sick, we're obviously going to be doing more for them as parents. So it's not to say there aren't any situations where these are required. There are, but it's not where we want to spend most of our time as parents. So then in the bottom left-hand corner, we'll have disengaged. So not doing really, not really interested or involved in our children's lives, not a lot of support and no expectations, and no rules or limits, and not much involvement in our children's lives. So this is a dangerous place for our children if we're there for a long period of time. But again, obviously, in life, sometimes there are things that we're going through as human, we're all humans, and life can sometimes throw things at us that make us, or that make it harder for us to connect with our children in the way that we want. So we might need support when we're in that place to be able to get ourselves out of that place as quickly as we can. So then in the top right-hand corner, we've got the supportive parent. So that's really what we're talking about today. And we can think about that as doing with. So we're going to be doing with our children. So it's not to say that there aren't any rules or boundaries or limits or expectations. There's still, it's high on that. So there are still those rules and limits and boundaries. We know that children need that, but there is a lot of support and guidance and warmth and love for our children to be able to meet those, and making sure that we explain what the rules and boundaries are, that our children understand them and that they're given the guidance that they need and the support that they need to be able to meet them. So that's the 4 main parenting styles, and we know that for children's optimal development, the more time that we can be that supportive parent to do the problem solving with them, explaining, the nurturing, the guiding with that warmth and love, that's going to be the best for them. So we've been through a lot of information already this morning, this afternoon. We've had a look at our children's development, brain development, child development, their social and emotional development. We've talked about play, and we've now had a look at parenting, what influences our parenting and different parenting styles. So now we're going to go back to that pyramid that we started with at the start and see what we can do in that everyday parenting section to support our children. So you'll see this is the bottom of our pyramid, and there are lots of things that we've got here. And I'm sure that there are many more that you do with your children. If you'd like to put them in the chat function to share with other participants, that would be great. And I'm not going to go through them all now because Nat's talked through quite a few of them with us. But I just would like to reiterate, I guess, that children need to feel loved and safe, to have that secure base, and for us as parents, as much as we can provide that with them so that they know that they have that and they can go out and explore their world and develop the skills that they need as they go through life. So I'm just going to focus on a few key points from this part of the pyramid. So children need clear boundaries and limits. We know that. We're not saying that we don't want children to have that. They need the routines and the boundaries, but we need to, as parents, make sure that they understand them and that we support them to be able to meet those boundaries. And they're going to be based on your family values. So as Nat was talking about, every family will have their own family values, and children will come to know that, and as much as you can involve them in those discussions, it's very beneficial for them. So they need the opportunity to learn and develop skills and to feel capable. And that's a key driver for children, to feel that they're capable and that they can master whatever the skill it might be, whether it's tying shoelaces or making cupcakes. To have that sense of pride in their achievements is a wonderful thing. They need our support as parents to learn to manage their emotions. We're not born, children aren't born knowing how to manage their emotions, and Leanne's talked to us quite a lot about what we can do as parents to help them through that. And they also need our support as parents to pursue their dreams and their interests. So we know that doing all of these things for our children as much as we can is going to be the best for their development as they grow. So this everyday parenting is part of the positive approach that we're talking about today, positive approach to guiding our children's behaviour. And it sets the scene, it's the foundations, I guess, for what we can do with our children when things get a bit more challenging or tricky. But having that strong connection, that strong base, those strong foundations will give us a good base to work from for those times when things get a bit tricky. So that leads us on to the approach, and we're going to start to have a look at that now, and Leanne's going to take us through this next section.
Thanks, Sophie. Okay, so we've looked at all that foundation, that strong foundation that we need. That's all part of the approach. But now we're going to look at that positive approach for guiding children's behaviour. And we use the word guiding children's behaviour. So the word guiding, meaning teaching and learning. So what we want to do is flip that switch that we've traditionally had about of parent-child behaviour. We actually want to look at flipping the switch from punishment to learning, guiding, teaching. And the reason we do that is because we talk about punishment. We look at punishment. What does that mean? Punishment, consequences. We're actually looking at it as a way of retribution. It's a way of saying it's pain. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's not about helping our children do it differently, but that's actually what we want. When we say to children, you need to sit there and think about what you've done, are they thinking about what they've done? Probably not. They're thinking about how unfair it is that they're getting told off and told to sit down. So we need to actually guide them, and we actually have to teach them about how we want them to do things differently next time, so that we don't keep repeating the behaviours. Because usually that's what it is. If we want to change things, we need to guide and teach. Punishment doesn't guide and teach. It doesn't help them to work out and to problem solve what they could do differently when faced with the same situation. And this is what the positive approach does. The positive approach meets the needs which drives behaviour. So what's going on that's causing this behaviour? What's actually underneath that behaviour? We'll have a look at that in a minute. But that's a really key thing. Another key thing to remember is a positive approach. It's not an easy option. It is not the quick fix. As you can see, as we've gone along, these are things we're doing every day. It's the everyday things that matter that's going to make the changes. It's not we're going to put this in tomorrow and that behaviour is never going to happen again. No, what we're going to do is keep doing it. We're going to keep guiding. We're going to keep teaching. And that's what it's all about. And that's what our parent role is really, isn't it? To guide and teach our children how to become capable, confident individuals, able to function within society. So that's what it is. It's not a quick fix. It's actually an everyday thing that we're going to be doing all the time. We're communicating our expectations very clearly. We're also bringing them involved in those decisions. We're actually having those family meetings, as Sophia and Nat have talked about. We're having those meetings where we're saying, okay, here's what's important to us. Here's our family values. What are our rules, our limits, our expectations? And bringing our children into that conversation, letting them have a say so that they can actually be involved in it. Because once they're involved and once they're on board with it and they're invested in it, they have some ownership over it. So that's a really key one. Communicating expectations and guiding behaviour is a key to the positive approach. So we want to have a look at understanding behaviour. It's really important that we understand that behaviour is communication. Behaviour, any behaviour our child does is always communicating something. It's up to us now to work out what that is. So we use the iceberg analogy, and thank you to Parents with Confidence for letting us use this diagram. It really is a great one to demonstrate what we're talking about. So a child's behaviour is not always what we see, what it seems. Quite often we'll come in and we'll see a behaviour happening, especially if there's a group of children and someone's crying and someone's angry and we might actually only see what's happened right then and there. We've only actually seen what the tip of the iceberg is. And if we think about an iceberg, we only see what's on top of the water, not what's underneath it, because the bulk of the iceberg is underneath the water. So we see the behaviour sitting up on top of the water, the tip of the iceberg, but what's going on underneath? What's the things that we don't see? What are the things under the surface? So they could be hungry, they could be tired. So taking a child shopping when they're hungry and tired is not a great idea because they're likely to have a big emotion. There could be some physical things going on for them, not feeling well. They could be some environmental stresses, too much noise, too much sound, too many people, overwhelming. It could be that they have some sensory needs, sight, sound, touch, taste. All those things could be happening. They might need to have a hug. They might need to feel that touch with them. So there's some things that are going on. They could be their social skills might not be up to scratch. The developmental stage might not be up to where they need it to be able to interact in the activity they're doing. There's a whole pile of things. They might have that need for connection, attention. Now, quite often attention is used as a dirty word. You know, oh, they're just doing it for attention. But what we want to flip that as well, flip that negative about attention and put in connection. They want that connection. They want to show you something. They want you to see them. They want you to value them. So that is really important, that need for connection. And quite often that's actually what the need is. So when we understanding behaviour, think about it as behaviours communication. So next time something happens, what is my child communicating to me? When we understand behaviour, when we understand that there's something going on for our child, we then can respond more effectively rather than reacting. So quite often we'll come and react to a situation rather than actually thinking, how am I going to guide and teach? How am I going to help my child learn how to handle this situation and deal with this situation differently? How can I do that? That need for connection. And quite often it could be a need for connection, but it could also mean that our agendas are different. Children have different agendas to what we have. What's important to us may not be so important to them. Leaving the house at 8 o'clock in the mornings because we've got to get to school and then to work, that's our agenda. That's what's important to us. It might not be that important to our children. So when they're in the middle of doing something, whether they're playing a game, reading a book, watching TV even, and we say, right, we've got to go now. And they don't want to go and they put up that barrier because, oh, not yet, give me, I need to finish this show. I need to finish the game. And that's because that's what's important to them at that time. It's not what's important to us. So we have different agendas sometimes. And that's okay. We just have to work around that. The other thing about understanding behaviours is pushing boundaries is normal. It is so normal. That's how children learn. They learn where the line in the sand is. This is how far I can go. That pushing boundaries helps them explore, it helps them learn, and it helps them know that's as far as I go. So that's all very normal. So when we understand what's behind children's behaviour, how we respond will be quite differently. But so if we think, oh, hang on, my child's tired or sick, we're less likely to be that grumpy with them. It becomes a chance to guide and teach rather than to punish. So we want to flip that switch from punishment to guide and teach. Okay. So to do that, we need to put our parent detective hat on. And that's a little word we like to use, parent detective hat on. What's going on for my child? What's happening for my child that has led to this behaviour? Now, we might not always be right. We can guess. We can say, oh, maybe this happened, maybe that happened, maybe they're tired, maybe they're hungry. Sometimes they can tell us, and sometimes they can't. But it's just having a think about all the things that could be impacting on our child at that time. What are their emotions? Why are their emotions like that? What's happened? And we don't have to be judge, jury, executioner. That's not what we have to do. We just have to think about what could be going on for my child. Because once we can do that, once we see that behaviour, once we start thinking what's going on, what's really going on for my child here, because the behaviour is just the tip of the iceberg, we can think about understanding there is a need and that we need to connect. And that doesn't mean we're saying what's happened in that, the way what they've done is okay. So it doesn't mean that, throwing the truck at the wall, is acceptable, or hitting the brother or sister or yelling at me is acceptable. That's not what we're talking about. We can address the behaviour once we've understood and connected. So we can connect first. I can see that you are really angry that you didn't get your turn to go down the slide. Something like that. We can just tell them that we can see it. We can tell them that we're on board. We know what's happening with you. It doesn't mean the behaviour is okay. It's still not okay to push someone over, or it's still not okay to yell at me. what's important is that we can connect. I can see that you are. And then we can build those skills. So what can we do differently next time? And it might be something as simple. Next time you don't get a turn, what could you do? Could you say, hey, I never got a turn. Could you come and tell me, Mum, Dad? And we can come in and help out, and we can help you negotiate. What is it that we can do to help? So that they can start learning those problem-solving skills, so that they can do things differently next time, and they can think about how they're going to approach that. So we've got a little iceberg here of our own, and we've got a behaviour up here, fighting over toys. It's a common thing that happens with children, especially given their age and stage of development. Sometimes sharing is not a great thing, depending on their age. It's a skill they learn how to share. So we did this one during the COVID time. So this is all related to that, but at the same time, it relates to everything. So fighting over toys, frustration. Maybe there's not enough toys. Maybe there's too many toys. Maybe they've been playing for too long. They've gotten frustrated. It comes out. And as we all know, you can have all the toys in the world, but all kids want that one toy that's sitting there. I want the red truck, and that's it. So, there's some frustration. I didn't get a long enough turn. I didn't get a turn. They could be bored. They could have been playing with it for too long. Sometimes we leave our kids to play for too long. They actually need to be moved on to something different. They just could be bored with that. They could be lonely as well. So they could be playing with their siblings. They're quite lonely. They want to play with their friends, or they want to play with you. They want that connection. They could be inside for too long. Been playing inside. It's time to get outside and burn off a bit of energy. They might need their own space. I just need to be with me and do what I want to do. They may have heard something, whether from the TV or from talking, adults talking, other people talking. That scared them a bit. They might have had something there. They've heard something that's really made them feel not safe. And so their emotions have built up, and they start to flip their lid. They might want to play with their friends. They don't want to be inside playing with brother and sister. I want to get out and play with friends, and I can't do that today. So there's a whole range of things there that could be going on for our child. So when we understand that, then we can approach it differently. So if our child's scared, we don't want to come in there and be angry and yelling at them. We want to be able to support them and to reassure them so that they start feeling safe. So when we do that, when we think about what could be going on for our children, the way we approach behaviour can be quite different. So putting our parent detective hats on is really our key thing. What's going on for our children, so that we can start thinking about what the behaviour is really about. Okay, so when we understand there's a need or a different agenda for our children, we can approach the situation differently as an opportunity to learn, guide, teach and connect. By using that supportive style, we're actually going to be doing with our children. So that's the important thing. We're going to work through this with our children. So I'm going to hand that now over to Natalie.
Thanks, Leanne. On your screen, you'll see a beautiful quote that really summarises everything that Sophie was talking about when we're looking at the parenting social discipline window, and the parenting styles, and also what Leanne's been talking about. So it's not what we do to children that is going to make them change their behaviour. Rather, it's what we do with children that will bring about a positive change. We increase children's accountability when we problem solve with them, when we make decisions with them, create rules and routines with them. And this really supports all of the information we've given you about involving children in decision making and the processes, and a lot of our everyday parenting. So this is a really good summary about how we can work with our children to bring about change and to help them to become accountable. So if this will take us now to parenting CCPR and what we can do to guide our children's behaviour. So we use the CCPR as a good way to help you to remember the steps that we need to do as adults when we're trying to help our children during those times when tricky behaviour happens. So if we have a look at the first one, we've got C, which is calm. So we need to be calm ourselves. We need to be calm before we can even help our children be calm. We need to use strategies with our children to help them to be calm, such as the breathe balls, the breathing fingers, and we also really need to focus on having time in and connecting with our children so that they know that we're there. We want to stay close to them so that we can help co-regulate and bring that flipped lid back down. We want to connect with them so that they can understand that we can see their perspective. Like Leanne said, it's not about agreeing with the behaviour that we're seeing, but it's connecting with them so that we can show them empathy and understand that we get it, but we just don't like that. So I know it's really hard for you to get out of the swimming pool when you don't want to, but we need to go now. So those things are, about connecting with our children so they can actually understand that we get it, we know why they're upset, and it can help them to move forward, I guess. The most important thing is that we need to remember that behind all challenging behaviour, there's a need or a desire that our children are trying to communicate with us. And they're doing that the best way that they can, given their age and stage of development and what's happening for them and how they know how to communicate with us. So that may be through throwing something, it may be through biting, it may be through having a tantrum because they don't have the words to say, hey, I just can't go to the shops with you right now because it's 5 o'clock and I'm really tired and I'm hungry. So we just need to work out how to connect with our children and understand and be that parent detective to understand what the behaviour is that our children are trying to communicate with us. Once we're at that point, we need to look at problem solving. And when we've kind of worked out what we think might be happening, we need to think about the problem solving and think about the learning opportunities that our children are presenting us with, and how we can give them the skills to be able to deal with that situation again. So, what you could do differently, what else could work, what you could change. So we're really flipping the idea of from away from consequences to looking at these situations as opportunities to build skills so that when they get into that situation again, that they have the skills that they can practice to do, to make a different choice if they're in the same situation. Once we've hit through the problem solving, we want to look at how we can reflect and repair on the situation that happened, and also maybe make amends and repair the perhaps fractured relationship or friendship that could have happened. So we want to reflect on what, how did that work? I tried this and it didn't work. Maybe we can do this again. So we actually almost go back to the problem solving. So we come up with a strategy during problem solving. We try it out. It doesn't work. So we reflect on that and we almost go back to the problem solving situation again, where we then work out some new strategies. We put them into place and then we reflect on it again. Everything goes great, and then we've learned a new skill and we're able to transfer that into different situations. And, like we've mentioned a few times, we need to practice those skills and give our children opportunity to practice them. When we often, during times where perhaps that we say things that we don't necessarily mean, or, our children are playing together and they are upset, they've hurt their sibling, we need to ask our children to help to work out how they can help their siblings feel better. How can they make amends and how can they fix it? How can they repair that relationship? It's not necessarily saying sorry. It may be through, what do you think you can do to make Annabelle feel better? And it might be that they say sorry, and that's great, but that comes from them and their need to be able to make amends. So it's really important that we give our children opportunity to repair the relationships that they have, and that's pretty much our CCPR and what we can do to, and strategies that we can put into place to support our children when those behaviours are really tricky. So let's have a look at, I'm going to hand you back to Leanne, and she's going to tie it all together and have a look at our pyramid again.
Thanks, Nat. Okay, so we're nearly there. Okay, so we've got our pyramid and, oh, hang on. Sorry about that. So we have our pyramid and we're going to now add, so we've already done our foundations. We've put that green part in at the bottom. Now we're adding our parenting CCPR into this purple bit. This is the bit that we're going to do when things get a little bit tricky. We're going to be calm, we connect, we problem solve, we reflect, we repair. And that's how we get through it. And so that's our purple bit filled in. So now we have our foundations, we have our strategy for dealing with the tricky behaviour, and then we can add in our self-help, seeking help at the top. And here are some things we can do. So seeking help, we all need help at some stage, and we all do look for help. And it might be something like we talk to our partner, our family, our friends, and we talk to them and we get some support, we get some information, but sometimes it's just that support. You're doing okay. And then there might be some books, articles, websites, blogs that we can go to, reputable ones that use the latest research and evidence, as Nat said, and we can get some information from there. But then we might need to think about, okay, there's some things here that I'm really I'm concerned about, or I really need some extra support. And it might be that we have to have a chat to our GP, our paediatrician. We might have to have some specialist services that we need to chat to. OT, speechies, psychologists. There might CAFS nurse. There might be some other more specialised people that we want to talk to about our children, and our children's centres, our schools and our childcare centres are a great resource that you can access, have a chat. Children's centres have community development coordinators there that may be able to help you, but certainly have a chat with your educators, and they may be able to help out as well. There's also parenting helplines that you may need, and they'll be on the back on the Parenting SA website and on the back of the Parent Easy guides. And also, they're here too. So the Parenting and Family Support Team, we're happy to have a chat with you and point you in the right direction, or let you know what's available out there with different agencies and resources. And then, of course, there's our workshops if you would like to attend one of those. So there's a whole pile of things that you can do to seek help, and don't feel horrible about doing it. It's great to seek help. The more information we get, the better we do. So the more we know, the better we do. So fantastic for that. Okay, so here it is all together. We have our green foundations, the everyday parenting that we're going to be doing every day, all the time. This is what actually makes it easier when we deal with the parenting CCPR. We embed that in our everyday life so that when we get to those tricky teenage years, we're doing all these things all the time, so that it makes it easier when we want to bring our children involved and get them to take accountability and respond to that behaviour. And of course, we're seeking help all the time. So that positive approach on the side there, the whole pyramid, everything that we're doing is about a positive approach. We're always setting the scene. We're always doing the things to connect. That connection is key. And behaviour is always communication. So they're the key things to remember. And our parenting CCPR, that little cheat sheet to pull into effect when you are facing a tricky situation or some behaviour that your children are doing. Okay, so now I'm going to hand you back to Sophie to tie it all up.
Thanks, Leanne. So thank you. That brings us to the end of our webinar. We know that we've been through a lot of information, so thanks for hanging in there with us. So just to recap, we started looking at children's development, their brain development, all of the other different domains, and focused on social and emotional development. And then we had a look at our parenting, what influences our parenting and different parenting styles. And then we unpacked children's behaviour and had a look at what can be happening below the surface, and using that iceberg as an analogy. And then we looked at the positive approach and what we can do, the strategies, the CCPR, that we can use to guide ourselves and our children in those tricky situations. So just to focus, I guess, on the positive approach, it uses that supportive parenting style, so the doing with, still being high on routines and rules and structure, but also high on support. It emphasises positive behaviour and using that descriptive praise that Nat talked about. It focuses on meeting the needs which drive that behaviour. So really digging below the surface to have a look and explore what our children are feeling underneath. And flipping the switch on thinking about it as children learning rather than as punishment. It focuses on the everyday parent-child relationship and what we're doing every day, which is so important for our relationships with our children. And, equally as important is communicating the expectations and limits and boundaries, and ensuring that our children understand what they are and that they're age appropriate. And for us as parents to be realistic and remember our children's age and development. So thank you very much for joining us today. We've really enjoyed putting this webinar together and delivering it to you today. We hope that you have taken away something that was useful and that you'll be able to use with your families. You'll see on your screen at the moment, there's our contact details there with our email address if you need it. And we'll be sending you an email tomorrow, which will have a link to the Parenting SA website, plus some other resources. And it will also have a link to a SurveyMonkey survey about this webinar today. And we'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to fill that out. We use that information to look at how we've done today and to improve for other webinars that we'll be doing, and also in the development of other webinars down the track, which we'll be doing next year. So thank you for joining us, and remember to have fun and enjoy your children. Goodbye.